I'm J.M. Frey, a speculative fiction author. I currently live in Toronto, Ontario, but I originally grew up in a small rural town. I've been writing since kindergarten, when I published my first short story in the local newspaper, and from there I cut my teeth on Yahoo groups, LiveJournal, fanfiction.net, and Archive of Our Own. I think that's part of what makes me a unique writer, that I started in fanfiction. A lot of authors did, and I think it's a wonderful training school. Writing fanfiction means that you have to analyze the media text you're writing fanfiction of quite closely, and that teaches you how to spot character tics or narrative arcs. It teaches you how to emulate mood or tone. It helps you write stories that sound like the media text you're emulating, or it helps you break out of that and do something interesting and unique. And I think everybody should try writing fanfiction at least once in their life. I'm working with IngramSpark right now to re-release the backlist of some of my original novels, like my debut, Triptych, which came out in 2011. It was named one of Publishers Weekly's Best Books of the Year and garnered a starred review. From there I went on to publish a fantasy series and a steampunk duology, as well as a little bit of erotica and some short stories collections, and a world-building workbook, which I think a lot of people could use to help them build their worlds or analyze worlds that they're trying to emulate in fanfiction. The book that I published first, and the one that I'm most well known for, is Triptych. I wrote it because I was living overseas, and I had my 25th birthday overseas, and I realized that my mother's 50th birthday was in a couple of months. I think it was the first time I had really clocked that we were half each other's age, or I was half her age. And it started to make me wonder if 25-year-old mom would like 25-year-old me. If we had met, would we have gotten along? Would there have been conflicts? What would that have been like? I think Mom and I would have gotten along, but I kind of got this little seed of an idea about what would happen if the 25-year-old mom and the 25-year-old daughter met and didn't like one another, and that's where Triptych came from. It is a time travel romance novel with a human couple who fall in love with an alien. The alien, who's a very sweet cinnamon roll named Kalp, comes to Earth not as an invader but as a refugee, and he's given a space in their home, and the three of them form a relationship. For the time travel part of it, Gwen, the female in the throuple, falls back in time and meets her mother, Evie. And when she starts talking to her mother about what her life is like, her mother is a little bit horrified. She isn't certain if this is what happiness is supposed to look like, because it's not what happiness looks like for her. When I came out to my parents, they were very accepting and loving. There was no question to me whether I would be kicked out of the house or not accepted. Coming out as bisexual in my house was sort of like standing up at the dinner table and declaring that I hated onions. It's just a preference and nobody really cared. My family has been very accepting, and I know that in that I'm privileged and lucky. Not everybody has had parents who are as supportive and accepting as mine are. And part of that ended up in Triptych as well. The idea that Evie is looking at the relationship that Gwen has with a human and an alien and thinking, how can that possibly be normal? How can that possibly be safe? There's a lot of worry on Eve's part whether Gwen is not only happy, but is going to be persecuted where she comes from and when she comes from. So that's what the seed of this story was. The book that I'm writing right now is called Soon Parted. It's the sequel to a book that I released digitally at the beginning of this year called 9/10. 9/10 is set in a contemporary fantasy world where dragons have always existed, and people know that they exist. Dragons are the nobility. They hoard the greatest resource on the planet, humanity. So the ones with the biggest hoards are emperors and monarchs. Dav is a dragon who lives in Canada, and he is just minor nobility, and he's got a crush on his barista, Colin. Colin has a crush back on Dav, but what Colin doesn't know about Dav is that he has a nervous disposition. One day when Colin accidentally surprises him, Dav breathes fire and burns down the cafe kitchen. He didn't mean to. And as an apology, he starts working there. The problem is there's a big taboo in dragon society about laboring for humans, so Dav has to keep it on the down low, and Colin doesn't understand why. Dav starts using his dragon breath to roast the coffee beans, and the coffee that results from it becomes a sort of big viral sensation. And suddenly Dav and Colin are thrust into the spotlight and under the scrutiny of every dragon in North America. Now they have to fight to be together and to prove that their romance is worth basically changing the world for. So that's 9/10. You can read it now. And Soon Parted is the prequel to that story, which talks about Dav's first love and his first travels to Canada. The writer who's influenced my work the most is not a single individual. It's all of fandom. I still read fanfiction around all of the original novels that I write because I find it, well, inspiring. No two people write the same characters or the same situation the same way. Everybody's word choice is different. The parts of the story that people want to focus on is never the same. And I find reading stories by passionate amateurs really helps fuel the passion in myself to get back to my own work. What's been my greatest accomplishment as an author? Well, from a career standpoint, it's definitely the accolades that I've received for my books. The Publishers Weekly Best Book of the Year award, the 2 Lambda Literary nominations, being asked to speak at festivals in Elora Mills or in upstate New York or even California have been amazing. But from an emotional point of view, I think the most wonderful accolades I've ever received is fan art and fan fiction. People are out there drawing my characters and writing songs about them and making up comics and making costumes and showing up at conventions dressed like people that I've invented. And I think that's more precious than any award that I could possibly win. I print out all the fan art and I put it on a gallery wall in my dining room. So every time I'm feeling low, I can look up from my dinner and enjoy the wall of everyone else's creativity and passion. And it really helps remind me that the stories I tell are meaningful to more people than just me.